Okay, today is Saturday. It is 11:55 a.m. It is February 28th. And I'm sitting here and uh I'm thinking about uh what what people said, okay? These professionals talk about, okay? Especially one statement that pops into my mind is uh the founders of S&P Capital says this. If you are competitive in a collegiate sport, chances are you will succeed as a day trader. That's what he said. Now now the only thing that I dabbled in was wrestling when I was in high school. That was just for 1 year, okay, but nothing else. So there's no background to my there's nothing that is uh, that I can relate to in that respects. Then I thought about my career as a engineer. Okay, now that I'm looking at it from a like a higher level, I'm looking at it from a high level of of uh, of my career. Okay, and so there was at one point. So the longest period of time that I worked for a company was about 6.5 years for one, and then the second one was 3 years, and then all the rest were less than that. Okay, and then every time I ended my job there, essentially, I proved to them that I was a bad hire. Okay, I proved to them that I was a bad hire to them, and so I ended up uh, losing my job, and then there would be some gaps in my employment. Those gaps, uh, those gaps ate up any reserves that I had, even my 401k and things like that. And so that is why I'm in a very very dire situation. Okay, very dire situation. And so when I go to Costco, and a lady on the outside, on the front, is talking to me about uh, buying something, okay, buying something, approaching me, right? I suspect what's happening is that I suspect they think, first of all, they have to think that I look like I have a job, a decent job, and that I should be able to afford whatever they're saying, whether I have enough credit or not credit, right? Right now, because I'm a convicted felon, I can't get as part of the statement. I cannot um, get credit cards. Okay, that's one of them. I cannot get credit cards because obviously there's no way for me to pay for it, right? There's no way for me to pay for it because because not being able to get a decent job, well, working as a prep cook is a decent job. It pays everything that I need, which is good. But in order for me to get ahead, that's not something that I can rely on to get ahead, right? And so when they approach me thinking that, well, this guy looks like, see, that's why they can't see. They cannot see. They cannot see me. Okay, they cannot see because essentially it's the brain. It's the brain determines. It's the brain that determines who the person is. Okay, it's the brain. What the superficial things people can mask and change and things like that, but the way that I'm dressed and things like that should give some indication. But Americans don't, even if they're rich, they're very rich. They dress and they dress very modestly, with humility, right? Many do, and certain people want to project who they are by wearing a suit. Okay, that's what they do. So so then I realized, okay, so the elongation. I realized, okay, so that's what he said, right? That's what he said. So that means that inherently, inherently, uh, my way of my way of the career that I had was a predictor of what I would do as a day trader. And sure enough, that's what's happening. That's why my trading buddy is very successful, okay? But I'm not, okay? Because uh, unlike him, I am unable to excel multiple things at once when I have a very difficult time attempting to excel on something that I totally focused on, right? So then I thought to myself, okay, so he said now the founder of SMB says, okay, if you're successful in one thing, you're going to be successful in something else. I can see that. I can see why that's the case. Okay, it's been 5 years. I can see why I'm not successful because I wasn't successful. I don't have I I I have not brought forth what's required for me to be successful. Like just last week, I was like, I kept failing the challenges. I keep failing it. Okay, and then what I ended up doing is I bought the cheap. So I have a little bit of smarts. So I would say that my IQ, and I'm not putting these people who have Down syndromes. Uh, Obviously their IQ is lower. Okay, their IQ is lower because they have um, this condition that limits that commits their mental capacity to a certain level. Okay, it's like it's like it's like an elephant. Okay, the elephant is expected to read and talk like a human being, but the elephant cannot because it has a certain a scale of intelligence. Okay, and then here I am. I'm squeezed between. I'm somewhere between a dog, okay, that has a certain intelligence, okay. So the Belgian Malinois or Malinois or something like that. I mean, they're like a hyperactive dogs, but they have a certain IQ, okay. And then there are normal people who have a higher IQ than I am. And so I sit somewhere between the average IQ of a human being and then somewhere above what a dog's IQ is. So I'm somewhere between there, okay? That's somewhere around there. And that's why that's why like I switch. My mind just switches. I could be like trading well the previous day, and then my mind would just switch just like that. It switches, it turns off, and the IQ just drops immediately. And so what I ended up doing is like, I would like, it switches just like that. Okay, so what happens is on a Friday, what happened was there was there was some economic U.S. economic news that came out, right? And so it was moving this way, and then started to drop. But since my mind just switched off just like that, I started to like pile in there with size. Little did see, I already knew. I know what happens. I know what happens when I do that. I have to wait until I see a clear signature before I enter. But if I enter in there just thinking, okay, so I'm gonna absorb whatever is gonna happen. I'm just gonna enter early and then see what happens. And what happens is it's gonna drop and then what it's gonna do is it's but before it does this, it's gonna keep going down, 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 down. And because I've leveraged so much, it's gonna keep going down, right? And then challenge is just, and I don't do anything about it because I don't put a stop loss because I forget it. So on a fundamental level, when my mind just switches off, the only thing that I do is essentially what I do is I know how to buy and sell. Okay, actually, the only thing that I know is buy. That's the only thing that I know. Okay, the only thing that I know is I click on it, so I buy. if my challenge is gone, then I find means to get another challenge to buy it again. So I know how to do that. I know how to buy. I am an expert at buying. Okay? I am an expert at buying, but I am not an expert at selling. Okay? I'm not. Because if I am an expert at selling, I will be selling it for higher value than what I bought. Okay? And then I would limit the losses. So I am not an expert at selling. Okay? I have to be an expert at selling. That seems to have been because I was so focused on buying. So in order for me to buy, I could go to E-Trade. Okay, in order for me to get E-Trade, I have to essentially what I have to do is open up an account, and then if I want to trade options, I'll search it. I'll figure out how to do it, and then I buy the options because it's under the PDT rule. I cannot freely trade it so much, right? And so that means that I can switch to see. I know how to buy, but I don't know how to sell because I don't research on it. There isn't enough information. I'm not seeking enough information for me to go and look into it. Okay, there isn't because the priority that I have when I switch off, my mind is switched off. When my mind is switched off, like because I didn't get enough sleep. What I do is essentially my mind just switches off. It switches off, and the only the background information. I know this is so boring. I know it, but I do this all the time for like 5 years, 5+ years. And I know that I'm talking like a broken record. I'm talking about this over and over and over again. I know it. I know it. I know this is what's happening. But that's the reality. That's the reality of being a non unprofitable trader. That's the reality of being an unprofitable trader. So then I'm looking. So I don't know. I'm not an expert. It doesn't come to me naturally when I do that. My brain should just default to selling. If I'm because I should be looking at it and selling. Hey, I should be selling. I should be selling when that happens. I should be selling. I should be selling when, and I should be careful. Okay, so I should be thinking about. I should be thinking about how am I going to sell before I buy. I need to think about selling before I buy. Okay, I have to do that. I have to think about selling before buying. Because if I think about buying first, the mind switches to the default mode where I keep buying. And then even if I lose one trade, I'm thinking, okay, I got to buy it again because it's like a I heard there was this there's this see people who create uh Romero. I believe his name is Romero. Robert Romero or something like that. He's the guy who created the zombie series. So apparently these zombies, when they turn into a zombie, they have the subconscious mind of what they used to be, and they carry that on for the they carry that on as a zombie. So if a gas attendant turns into a zombie, then the gas attendant will remain in that area, acting on a sub threshold level of being a gas attendant. A person a person who is a prep cook will be a prep cook when a person becomes a zombie. I am a prep cook. When that when something like that switches, I turn into a prep cook. That's not useful when I'm a day trader. Okay? I need to when that happens, when I turn into a zombie, I need to be a day trading zombie, not a prep cook a zombie. So what's happening? What seems to be happening is this. What seems to be happening is this. In trading, people turn into zombies. Okay? People turn into zombies, and then they revert. They revert back to what their other side job is, what are the other jobs are, okay? And so they become emotional, they switch off, and then they think superficially, sub-threshold thinking, and they uh, think subconsciously, and then they revert. So subconscious, turning on living life as a subconscious is essentially very close to living as a zombie. Okay, and if trading is actively trading is making me into a zombie, which will happen, I've accepted to that fact. The reason my forehead isn't dented as much is because I keep pounding my head. I'm like, I keep pounding my head. I said, why? I keep saying this to myself. Why did you do that, Key? Why? Why did you do that? It's because I reverted back to the zombie mode when I'm trading and I lose everything. And it's not being a day trader. It's turning into some sort of subconscious prehistoric mammalian beast that is trying to trade, and I cannot be trading that way, right? It's a flight or fright. It's like fight or flight risk, kind of a state of mind, right? Now I'm like not trading. Okay, now I'm not trading. I'm at ease. Okay, I'm calm. Okay, I'm calm. Okay, now I'm calm. Okay, now I'm calm, right? Um, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm thinking, okay, so now going back to my career, now trading essentially is about elongating a series of so every account is a job. Okay, every challenge is a job. Now that I think about it, every challenge is a job. Okay, every challenge is a job. Every platform challenge is a employment. Every platform challenge is an employment. Okay? Now, why is it that I wasn't able to think about like this? Why is it that I was unable to think in this type of terms? Because I never ran a business before. I never ran a business before. I never did. Even though I was always in a business of myself, I never ran a business. I never ran a business ever. I never ran a business. Okay? Even though I'm in the business of myself, I was in the business of myself. I wasn't, when I was living, I was in the business of other people, not my business. I was in the business of other people instead of thinking that I was in the business of myself. Okay? I need to be in the business of myself. But I never carried myself. See, these people who are here, who have their own offices, um, if they're not employed by the people who are renting this place, they're in the business of themselves. Now I'm in the business of myself. I am in the business of myself. But what I found out is that I'm not a successful businessman. I'm not. That's why. That's why when women uh, uh, talk about who businessmen are, they have this mental mindset of they're always broke. Okay, they're always broke because only very few succeed as a business person, and they've experienced it so much times that when they're on a date and they say, "Hey, I'm a businessman," they've experienced it before and they know what kind of people they are. Okay, so most people cannot succeed as a business person. Okay, and when people say, "Hey, I'm a businessman," it's a red flag. Okay, you have to be very, very good at what you do to be a businessman. Even in sales, you got people who are at the top level and there are people who are not. Okay, even in sales, the profession of sales, that's why they have like a monthly kind of thing that happens at the top. Okay, the top 2%ers, top 1%ers, because they outshine the other people. Okay, and where am I going with this? Okay, so I thought about this. So if I'm considering each of the challenge to be in employment, okay, then figure out, I have to figure out how I can be as effective as I can be. See, even if somebody hires me as an engineer, I cannot work there. I know it. I now know, I now know that even if somebody gave me an opportunity, I do not have the skill sets. I do not have the skill set to be profitable. In order for me to, I cannot be successful. I know it. Okay, I know it now. I know it. I became aware of who I am by day trading. Now I know what's going on. So now, if I'm looking at it, the reason why I'm thinking this way is this. Okay, so the stretch of time that I'm profitable is a is a is a small part. It's a section of a timeline. And so what I need to do is I need to expand it. I need to expand it. So it's the same thing. So when I get employed as in a company, they have this matching contribution by the company, and so the 401k starts growing. But when I get unemployed, then I have to collect on that. I have to take that out, okay, to live. And so trading is very same. It's practically the same way. I get a wage, and then I take that money and put it into investments, things like that. But once I start losing, then it's over. Okay, it's over. All right, the trading is over, and so there's also something called like 6 months of salary that needs to be saved for a rainy day. Right, I need to save for that kind of thing, and so what I finally realized, okay, what I'm now realizing, where I didn't have time to think about this because I was feverishly trying to figure out what effective setups are, what subconscious. So I was like exploring the day trading world, and I was exploring myself because there's such a big contribution of who I am in trading. Okay, the mind and also the technique. Technique is there. It's just so many things are there. It's hard to keep all that stuff into the mind and keep processing it. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of brain power to keep all that stuff in because I know because certain situations, especially when it does, I know this. I know this. When something drops, I never want to get in there, especially with big size. I never want to do that. Even if I have small size and I get in there, I wait for it. By the time it finishes its move, the loss becomes huge. It becomes big. Okay, and so I know that. But when that mind switches off, the logical side is just gone. It's gone. It cannot. It doesn't. It doesn't know. And so what I have to do is this. Okay. What I have to do is elongate it as long as possible. And now it's making sense. I heard about this guy who only puts in $4,000 into the trading account, and anything above that he just takes out. Okay, because he knows he's prone. Even professionals who make money on a regular basis knows that at any moment the account can be blown. There was another guy who's on YouTube. This guy is a super pro. Okay, and he was trading live, and then because his size was so big, he blew it in like two trades. He blew it in two trades. Okay, he blew it. Okay, on two trades. Okay, he blew his funded account in two trades, even though he's a super professional who's profitable. Okay, which means that it doesn't mean that a single challenge is the means to crumble and be slated as somebody who now is not profitable ever again. But somebody who's profitable will lose those funded accounts. It's a regular part of trading life. That's what it is. And so now that I've been trying to figure this out, the correlation between the 5K and the 10K. Okay, I was successful as a 5K, but the reason I lost that 5K, the funded account, after getting two payouts is because the FOMC was out and I had some size on and it moved against me and I didn't do anything about it. And I didn't put a stop loss in there. Okay? That's how I lost that challenge. Okay? And I was being very careful too. Except that that particular day, I forgot. I forgot to set the stop loss. It happens. I forget. The brain uh, has this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful feature of forgetting. Okay? If you don't forget, if the brain doesn't forget, what it will do is it'll just self-destruct. It'll keep thinking about it over and over, and then it'll preoccupy the mind, and the person will just snap and just go just like that, just gone. That's why people that's why people who are so that's why people who are depressed, they keep thinking about that depressive thing. And then it grows and grows and grows, and then they don't know how to keep it contained. And so it gets out of control. Okay? That's what happens. Okay? Psychologically speaking, psychologists know this. Psychologists know this because they studied this. They know it. They know it. But in order for me to become profitable, I had to become like the street right over here. It says Elder, right? Dr. Elder, or Alexander Elder. That's why psychiatrists are successful. Many of the psychiatrists are successful. Lawyers and psychiatrists are successful in being a day trader. Okay, traders. Okay, because they're able to control their emotion. Lawyers know about emotion. They know it. Okay, they become intimately familiar with the psychology. Okay. So then what I need to do is create this environment, because I know what happens. When this happens, I know what to do. But the subconscious doesn't know. Okay? When it does this, I know what to do. When it does this, I know what to do. Okay? I know what to do on the logical side. But when the subconscious side kicks in, I don't know what to do. Okay? That's the difference. So what I realized, now looking back in my career, I noticed that the longest that I've ever worked was about 6.5 years. And then the next one was 3 years. And then 2 years, 2, like that. And then 1 year, things like that, right? That's how it turns out to be, right? So what is the difference? I relate that now. I relate the 5K as my long-term employment as an engineer for 6.5 years, which is the same as working, which is having a funded account for the 5K, because I had to have 8% gain, then a 5% gain, which essentially is about a 3-week thing. It took me 3 weeks. It could be faster now, but it took me 3 weeks to go from to essentially get funded. And then I got paid twice, which is 1 month. Okay? It took 1 month. It essentially took 1 month. Okay, 1 month. So that's about a 2.5 month stretch of trading period, which I was successful. And then it ended with that FOMC, right? It ended with the FOMC. But I was there. So that was the longest employment trading that period that occurred. And I can just remember the focus that I had. It was an intense focus. So if I'm thinking about the explosive nature of the thinking and how it contributes to the outcome of a particular subject matter, whether it's going to be depression, which will essentially get into like a harmonic kind of a situation where everything vibrates at the same way, so that the total part of the brain is vibrating at the same time, and it becomes a debilitating kind of a state of mind. But it can also be used on the positive side to create to catapult my thinking into trading. Okay, as long as, because what that means is that I'm focusing totally. My mind and body is totally focused on that single objective of, because when I started on that journey with the 5K, I said to myself, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. I'm gonna make it work. I'm gonna make it work. And I said, because I was like, I what I had done was I spent every penny that I had, and I had to get it done. I had to get it done. Okay, because I limited the amount of work that I was doing, in order for me to allow myself to have more time. Okay, and so the success I already have. I figured out how to be successful. That was like that was me. That was like 6 months ago. That was me 6 months ago. This is me 6 months later. So that means that I should be better. I should be an improved version of myself from the version I was 6 months ago. So so when I was successful 6 months ago, then that tells me that I need to be successful now. Okay. So what is the difference? I'm looking at it, and the only factor, consistent factor that I've realized is that it's the stop loss. It's the stop loss has been consistently, consistently taking every penny that I had. Okay, so 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 what I need to really really so if I'm afraid that when I put a stop loss and it's gonna wick down and take it, then I should never be in that trade anyway, right? And also, if I use a stop loss and I'm saying, okay, so if the trade goes slightly against me, then I'm gonna close out that account. Then the size is too big, okay? Then the size is too big, so I need to match that up. Okay, that's the right way of trading. That's the logical way of trading. That's keeping my. See, when I trade small, my emotion is oh, when I'm trading small, I can make a lot of mistakes. I can make a lot of mistakes and still survive. When I trade small, when I trade small, I'm cool as a cucumber. See, that's the distinction. If I size big, and it wears me out. It does. It wears me out. It does. It takes an enormous amount of energy. It takes an enormous amount of, and so when I'm trading small, and when and chances are these prices move big too, and so it gives me time to reflect on my trade, and so I can I can trade well. Okay, but if somebody is like, it's just like that super pro who was like who lost the challenge in two. I mean, a funded account in two trades. I mean, the size was so big. The size was so big. If the person is wrong, even before it hits the stop loss, it's over. That's the size. The size makes a huge difference. But if what I've noticed that the difference between a big size and a small size is that if I use small size, I'm just cool. The mind is logically thinking. But if I'm emotional, it causes an incredible amount of energy to be depleted. Okay, so small size, cool as a cucumber. I can be as I can be a I so I have to get to the state where I am essentially in a state of being a cucumber, cool as a cucumber. That's what I need to be. Okay, that's what I need to strive for, and I need to formulate this. I need to formulate it so that I dial it in. So I need to dial it in. Okay, so I saw this advertisement on YouTube about this guy who was talking about. So you're always going through this situation where you're like losing your challenges like within an hour kind of thing. Well, that's what they do, right? Of course, because the person is using too big of a size and the setups are wrong. Okay, setups are wrong. Even if your setup is right, if your size is too big, you're gonna lose because it moves so big. So so for the past couple of days, I was like, wow, I'm at it again. I'm like I'm lost. It. My mind is like tilted. It's not thinking right. then what I need to do, I keep writing this. Then I regain my consciousness, and then I come to a conclusion. And this is what I need to do. I need to dial it in. I have to dial it in, okay, so that I'm not too extreme. I'm not too, I'm not too down here, but I need to be right there, okay. I'm not as smart as the average human being, but I am in most cases smarter than a dog. But in certain situations, a dog is a lot smarter than I am. I know this. I know this. In certain situations, dogs are smarter than I am. Okay? My intelligence dropped below the intelligence of dogs. I've noticed that. Okay? See, at least when the dog is hungry, okay, when the dog is hungry, it knows what to do. But my intelligence sometimes, even if I'm hungry, I don't even know what to do. Oh boy. Okay, uh so essentially what I need to do is just dial it in. I have to dial it in. I have to dial my trade in. Okay? And always fit that stop loss because anything can happen. When that stop loss hits, it cannot go any lower than this. It cannot. So I can think about it. It gives me time. But if it goes below here, boom, it's done. Job fired. I'm fired. Okay? I'm fired. Okay? What does President Trump, he had a show and he goes, "You're fired." Okay? He says, "You're fired." All right? He says that. You're fired. I think I have a YouTube video on that, right? Let's see. Yeah, oh yeah, I did. About a year ago. I fired myself. Yeah, I can see why I did that. Because I was doing something. But the reality is, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. It's like when I take a trade, I'm employed. Soon as I as soon as I make that trade, I'm employed. I am employed. Okay? With that, whatever that brief moment of when that trade is being taken care of, I am employed. Okay? I am employed. I have to remember that. I am employed. Okay? Oh, you're fired? Okay, I'm employed now. Okay, I'm employed. Okay? I'm employed. Let's go celebrate. Okay? Let's go to Chuckarama and have some food. Okay? You're fat. I'm fat. But let's go have some food. I'm employed.